I was excited to see you, not so much for the movie. Hello, everyone. Welcome to No Drama, Just Movies, and we are back this week with another review. Give our channel a lovely little subscribe to stay tuned with all the content we release each and every week in the world of TV and movies. My name is Cameron. Do not put animals in cages unless it's suitable for home. Kelly Smith, and I'm joined by my esteemed
No, you have
colleague.
to. Sorry, I interrupted you. Do that one again. Unless.
uh, unless it's not suitable, like my pet hamsters, but they've passed away. And I'm joined here by my esteemed colleague.
Um, Spring the dollars. I'm Phil, the great and terrible Corwin.
Oh, that's right. We've been called many names in our lifetime. But as you can probably tell, we are here to review none other than Wicked. Obviously, now a new major motion picture taking after the hit Broadway and for us over here in the UK, West End musical. Well, obviously, this is one of the biggest films of the year. We're approaching the end of the year. This is being promoted as somewhat almost as the Christmas movie, I suppose, this year, because obviously Red One doesn't seem to be filling those shoes. So, I mean, listen, I hadn't seen the actual musical. You have more than once. So the question is, coming off from the musical and the hype and intrigue the musical has, is this movie for you? Did it meet expectations? Did it hit the high bar that a lot of people have had for it?
Did it hit the high notes? I think it did. Like my expectations were high because I've seen the musical and I really enjoyed it. But there was also fear of like could especially from Ariana Grande because I hadn't like seen her act before, and it's always a bit of a risk to put singers in films, especially in like leading roles. But I was like very positively surprised, and we get into like the specifics, but yeah, by her performance, but also by the whole film, I think it was yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I went into this with very low expectations. I'll be very honest with you. I wasn't excited for this movie. I saw the trailer again last week and it looked visually cool and it did pick up my intrigue and I knew that we was going to review it, but I wasn't excited for this movie at all. Even coming to watch it here today, obviously, our time here in the UK, I was excited to see you, not so much for the movie. And I am pleased to say that I'm very glad I went to see it. This movie is great. It's actually a really good movie, and it took me by surprise. We'll get into it, but I think the biggest thing for me is that similar to how we felt about Gladiator initially, but this even more so is that it feels like all of the moving parts are coming together and fit into something quite beautiful. It does feel like you're watching a spectacle, something grand in design, and the set design, we'll get onto that, is one of my biggest like the things that I enjoyed most about this movie because it is so beautiful. It does make you feel like you are there in Emerald City, in this, mystical and fantastical land, which I really enjoyed. The performances are great. It is very emotional. The story is quite compelling. You mentioned Ariana Grande. We'll get onto the cast. As you said, obviously to pick up from that, I am a big fan of Ariana Grande, and because she's a very beautiful, talented lady. I'm not too much of her target demographic for her music, but I love her voice, and I always have. And she is great. And to see someone who doesn't have much acting experience and hasn't been in much come and do a performance like this on this scale is really like you got to give a round of applause to her.
Cynthia Erivo's Elphaba, just like what was going on with her, just the pain in her eyes sometimes, like the scene when she comes into the party and like the aquarium style party.
Great scene,
Yes,
great performances.
absolutely. Like she wears this outfit that Galinda made her wear, and everybody's laughing at her, and then Galinda comes up to her and like tries to pull her in and be nice to her, and just the way I read it, like just that happiness someone actually like bringing her in and like accepting her. And you see the tears flowing. But let's get the negative thing out of the way now. Um, I think most of these songs didn't work for me. And not even in comparison with the stage show, but just as songs, like they weren't as memorable. I think this musical has like two great songs, and then the rest are okay. And definitely Defying Gravity is like the standout one. I think you can just do that one and leave all the other ones out, and it'd still be good, a really great musical. Um, but yeah, I think that those are the only like comparisons. Um, just like them. Um, that
We'll get onto articulation in a second.
Yes. Do you want to do that now? So
Well, I mean, I
focus
think
away
we
from me.
should. Look, I think I'm not a musical guy, right? Like I'm not, right? I'm not a musical man. And there's only a few musicals that have really gripped me. And usually I go in cold. And sometimes those few musicals, they've actually gripped me. You know, La La Land is one of now my favorite movies. And I went into it not expecting much, and I came out of it loving the soundtrack. Um, I don't remember any of the songs from this movie. I really don't. Like this
Not
movie
even the
to
last
me,
one?
just that
Sure.
one. I this movie, in my opinion, could have had no music and I wouldn't have noticed, if I'm being very honest. Like I don't remember any of these songs.
Hmm.
I didn't feel any of these songs. But I think the main issue for me with the songs, and this is gonna sound very hypocritical, it's gonna sound very petty, but look, you know, for any of our viewers who don't know, myself and Phil here, we once were actors and we did go to drama school. And obviously, you know, we're not saying, you know, that we're on the level of some of these professionals, of course not. But one of the things that we did learn when we did our some of our song and musical theatre training as a part of our acting training was the importance of articulation and consonants and being able to be understood clearly when you're singing or speaking. And one of my biggest issues is that I felt like, and this is more so with Ariana Grande, but with a lot of the songs in general, I couldn't truly hear or understand what they were saying. And that was a bit of a bummer for me because I did feel like it took away a little bit from the music. But in general, the music just wasn't for me. And I know that it's going to be for a lot of people and it's beloved. And I really admire what they do. I admire their voices. I admire every bit of talent, even the songwriting itself, everything. But it just wasn't for me. It didn't work. And that's not because I'm anti-musical. It's because I just don't think it worked. If I'm being honest with you, I don't think it's that compelling. I don't think it's that interesting. And at times it did drag. There was a couple numbers in this movie that felt like we were going on for ages. Obviously, I can't name the actual numbers because I'm not that versed in, you know, Wicked. But for example, you know, there's a scene where Galinda and Elphaba are having a chat, and you know, and Galinda's talking about, you know, she's trying to help Elphaba, you know, kind of have a makeover and trying to help her be popular, and she breaks into some song, and it felt like that song was going on for an hour, you know, and it was nothing exciting or that compelling, and I think that with music, especially in musical theatre, I think that you have to be careful with why the person is breaking out into song
Hmm.
and it needing to be compelling. And I'm not saying that for other people it wouldn't have been, but for me it just wasn't. And I think that it did drag. That was my main issue with the movie. Look, at the end of the day, this is a movie about inclusion. It's a movie about diversity. And I think that they handled that in such a spectacular and beautiful way. You know, there's a lot of projects, right, that release and they handle tough, sensitive themes. Some handle them very well, some handle them not very well. Some handle them in a way that they have good intentions, but it just doesn't end up being compelling in the way that they're telling the story. This really hit. It is really emotional. You mentioned the scene of, you know, when Elphaba, you know, she walks into this, you know, underwater cave like dance, whatever, almost like a prom that they're having somewhat. You know, and she has that moment where she realized she's been tricked and that, you know, Galinda has basically tricked her into coming in with this, you know, black attire and this black witch's hat. And, you know, that moment was so powerful. And I think that for Cynthia, for me as a viewer, that was maybe the most beautiful scene from her in the whole movie. I thought that that was just tremendous. Like when that tear drops down her eye, you almost felt like you wanted to cry as well. It was brutal and it was
Yeah.
so well done. And from a performance perspective across the board, obviously Cynthia, Ariana, excuse me, tremendous. Michelle Yeoh, I thought was awesome, and Jeff Goldblum, I think that he works as good old Oz. I think he does work.
You gotta love Jeff Goldblum, man. Like
I,
I was thinking, he's the only actor I can think of who can say these words like he literally just thought of them.
yeah, for
Everything
sure.
he says and the way he says it, it's just like the thought just popped into his head and not like he read the script for a couple of months. I don't know how he does it.
Tremendous, tremendous.
Yeah, it's awesome. But yeah, you mentioned Michelle Yeoh. There's a moment where she realizes that Elphaba is that powerful, and she like makes chairs and tables fly. And the way Michelle Yeoh says Elphaba, it's just there's a respect suddenly there, right? There's a
Mm,
like hope, I guess, as well. And it turns out like later we might get into spoilers now, but it turns out why it's so important that Elphaba is so powerful. But you can see that from that moment, this kind of joy of finding the right person at that moment, even if you don't understand yet what's going on. And then Ariana Grande, she was like, I already said I had my doubts or my fears, I think, more than that. But she was amazing. Like she was, I would say perfect for this role. Like the way she played it as kind of like a childish, ditzy blonde sometimes, but still had some depth to it as well, some at moments. You
mm,
could see like some sadness coming through, and some real like honest care, and that she could pull off both. Actually quite impressive. But yeah, we talked about how the music is a bit not our thing, I guess, but the film didn't need it. Like absolutely, the story just pulls you in, and I loved the story you said about was about inclusion. I think yeah, just inclusion, like judging people from not by how they look, but what by their talents or what they can do. But it was also about friendship and what friendship can do for people and like how it can, how you can find acceptance and someone who changes you, and like makes you a better person just by being a friend. I love how Elphaba goes from basically being the outcast and being laughed at to being accepted, for a bit when she actually does show how much she can do, and how powerful she is to basically becoming the villain of the whole country. And but simply because, and I love as well, like simply because she like catches on how evil, the wizard and Miss Morrible are, and tries to do something good against them, or like tries to, not go with them. Um, and she becomes the villain, and nobody knows what's actually going on. So
yeah.
this kind of uh, pity that evokes, I think is great from the story as well. And just where she goes at the end. At the end, she does decide that I don't need these people anymore. I'm going to like stop trying to be accepted and just going my own way. And yeah, I love that for her. Like it's that song is like the most powerful one in the whole musical, Defying Gravity. And the way she sang it is amazing too. And like the visuals and the direction of that. Yeah, I loved all of that.
Yeah, and I think to hop on off that, one of the things that I enjoyed most about this movie is actually one of the things that I have a critique about with this movie, and that is the law. Um, I find the law to be so beautiful, like especially as someone who's trying to refresh my memory about the Wizard of Oz, figuring out, they talk about in the movie once they arrive in Emerald City about, the prophecy. And so, I was quite intrigued and how, Oz himself ended up in this land and was able to persuade the people that he indeed is almost like a good old Paul Atreides, that he was also a link down there below for our most recent review of Dune Prophecy, the first episode. However, back to this review, that you does a little cheap plug, but it does. I was intrigued as to how he does come over and become the great and powerful Oz, and how he does get accepted into that position. And all of that lore was fascinating to me, and I would love to actually know more or find out more. Whether we do in the next part, I don't know. Um, but you mentioned, for example, when Michelle Yeoh's character, when she sees Elphaba and doing the magic trick and well, magic trick, but showing off her
Yeah.
sorceress skills that she hasn't tamed at that point, and it's quite obviously that eventually leads to her in her mind knowing, okay, this is the woman that we can refer to Oz, obviously to help him, but it's not kind of made clear specifically what Oz wants her for. Like, obviously, it's said that Oz mentions that he kind of wants her to, make, kind of revitalize the city and change the way it works. And also, using her as a way to give the people a new enemy and kind of complete his plan. But it's not kind of made clear to me, unless I'm just dumb. I wasn't fully, maybe, it's been a tough time. But, sometimes I kind of didn't feel like I truly understood why they really needed just her. Like if the Michelle Yeoh's character is also a sorcerer,
Hmm.
the way that this movie is set up, as if Elphaba is the only other sorcerer person with these powers. Even Galinda at that point, she doesn't really have powers. At least that's why it's shown, or at least hasn't perfected her sorcerer ability. So it's kind of implied that okay, Elphaba is just like I mentioned to you after we watched it, similar to like just a natural born X-Men or natural born mutant. You're just insanely powerful, and there's no other way to describe it. But it was kind of confusing how she happens to be the only one. But I'm willing to accept it. It's interesting for the lore and for the story. But I think the history of Oz, the history of Emerald City. They're delving into what's happening with the animals and them taking away animal speech. They don't really explain exactly how, but obviously them wanting to give the people something new to hate. But I would like to find out more as to why that is. Obviously, they kind of delve into the fact that resources maybe went a bit scarce, and as a result, people look for someone to blame, that being the animals. But that was a long time ago. So why now? I would like to just get a bit more of a background into the lore as to how Oz came to be, why he's doing what he's doing, and how I suppose the power system or scale works within this universe, and how things came to be. But fingers crossed we'll get that in part two, because yes, I did not know that there was a part two. Clearly, you can tell I was very interested in this movie. It's not
Yeah.
until you watch this movie that in the opening credits it actually says Wicked Part One, and so I'm very excited for part two now. Like, how do you feel about it?
Knowing the full story, yeah. Me too. But yes. Because there's going to be a lot more interesting stuff going on with just because yes, I loved where it left the two ladies because they're still friends at that point by the end, but they're on opposite sides of what I guess is now like a war, like a woman hunt. And I love that conflict for them. It's kind of, I guess, like you mentioned X-Men. It's kind of, I guess, like Magneto and Charles Xavier, who are always friends but now find themselves at opposite ends of just a huge conflict. And where that goes will be interesting, I think. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I'm very fascinated to see what happens next, and especially that arc. That friendship between Elphaba and Glinda is such a highlight that I'm intrigued to see how
Hmm.
this now materializes. As you said, now they're on opposite sides of the fence, but still with that kind of bond. Anything else you'd like to add before we give it our review out of 10?
Yeah, I did want to mention one more because you mentioned the animals and loss of speech and all that. So I think the first time um, watching this, I realized like how much it is about inclusion, but also like just like being allowed to be yourself, I suppose, and like taking away um, literal voices of a whole community, and so judging some people by the color of their skin, literally, which is also why it's like fascinating to cast a black woman as Elphaba, because it like completely changes like the meaning of it, I think, or like adds another meaning. Um,
Yeah, no, good points. Really good points. I'm intrigued, and I'm intrigued for part two next year. That's right. We have a whole year to wait. However, we have a whole year to enjoy Wicked Part 1. So that will do it for our review of Wicked Part 1. We have a new, well, it's not so much new anymore, but we have a review system on this channel where we give our movies a score, a rating out of 10, but we give them a certain ICs amount out of 10 for you Penguin fans. Poor Vic, rest in peace. So, Wicked Part 1, how many ICs would you like to give this movie out of 10?
So I'm gonna give it a 9 out of 10.
Woo!
It was very, very watchable. I felt moved a lot of the times, and I think that's what you want from a film, from any kind of media, just that emotional connection, like it pulls you in. I've felt the tears a couple of times, which is beautiful. Always good.
You baby.
I know. Always good when a film can do that. The only thing that drags it down a bit were the songs, because yeah, they really weren't my kind. So yeah, a 9 out of 10 for everything, performances, set, the story. Yeah, it was amazing.
Damn, so you're going for 9 ICs out of 10, and I am going to go for 8.5 ICs out of 10. So just a tiny bit lower than yourself. I really enjoyed
Wrong
this
with
movie.
you?
I know I did enjoy this movie. It is fantastic. However, similar to you, I felt like the songs to me at times started to drag it down, but not specifically even just the songs themselves, but the duration of some of these songs and the fact that I felt like some of those set pieces took away from the actual story itself. And it kind of made it a little bit feel a bit too long in some parts. However, the lore, the set design, the characters, the story arc, everything absolutely beautiful, a wicked surprise. And yep, so I'm going with 8.5 ICs out of 10, and you're going with 9 ICs out of 10. So that will do it for our review of Wicked. Once again, we are No Drama, Just Movies. If you like this review here, please give our channel a lovely little subscribe. Stay tuned with all the content we release each and every week in the world of TV and movies, as well as our new talking segment, Our Two Pence. Please check out all our content and have a whale of a time. Once again, my name is Cameron. Do not put animals in cages unless they're a hamster and you have to at home. Kelly Smith, and I am joined by my esteemed colleague here.
I'm Phil, the great and terrible Corwin.
Oh, that's right. Be great, not terrible. If you're not great, we'll just allow you to be terrible anyway. That's will do it for our review of Wicked Part 1. Remember, be yourself, animal or human, and we will see you very, very soon. Take care, guys.
Bye.